Hello and welcome along to the Weather Studio Live. I'm Alex Deakin.
I'm Aidan McGivern. We're here at 1 p.m. every week on a Tuesday, broadcasting live from the Met Office HQ in Exeter. We are, of course, on the social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. And today, coming up, we're going to be talking about Typhoon Hagibis. Is it going to pose a threat to Japan? How unusual is this typhoon? We'll have all the latest details on that. Plus, a windy autumnal week in the UK. Maybe some benefits to the windy weather, actually. We'll be talking a little bit about that.
Classic autumn fare.
Next to me is Claire in the chair.
On the chair.
I am on the chair, the Weather Wall of Wisdom. Please send in your comments and your questions. Debate raged last week during the show whether it was a bit too technical or not. So please let us know how you feel about this week's show. And we do like to inject a little bit of science into the show. It's not just about forecasting. And another question, Gravesend, why doesn't it exist anymore, Alex?
Yes, we took that out of the observing system last year, didn't we? It was often one of the hot spots because when you get a southerly wind, it benefits from its geography being on the southern portions, just as you go into the Thames there. So actually, that was why it was often one of its hottest places, but they had to get rid of it for technical reasons. So we don't have that observation site anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, we're going to be taking many more questions from you. Claire will be answering them, and we'll chip in occasionally as well. So please feel free to send in those comments and questions. But first, well, it's pretty autumnal outside, isn't it?
It's going to be a tough week for umbrellas. You're going to need one because there's a lot of showers around, but there's gusty winds. So you could see a lot of umbrellas being turned inside out.
Leaves flying about. Finally.
Classic autumn fare.
Branches stripped bare. We had a wet start to the week, actually. This was the extent of the cloud cover on Monday as we started the week.
Beautiful swirled out low pressure system.
That big area of low, actually to the northwest of the UK, it's not going far over the next few days. It's going to keep sending us showers, but this was the main weather front associated with it. Now that cleared through, and we're back to showers now, bright spells and showers. You may have already seen a few showers already this morning. You can see the speckly shower cloud on the map there. You can also see plenty of sunshine, a bright start to the day. What you can also see, if you just squint ever so slightly, and use your imagination a little bit, you can see some lines in the cloud there over the Pennines. And that is a key signal for meteorologists that it's a lee wave activity going on up there in the Pennines. What does that mean? Well, it means that you see it in the clouds, but you feel it with the wind, lee waves.
Lee gusts, lee waves and lee gusts, yeah. So you get some strong gusty winds on the lee side of the mountain. So the winds are coming in like this, the low pressure was up there, the wind's coming in like this, and coming almost perpendicular over the mountain chain that is the Pennines. The Pennines are a classic example for it, but you can get them quite strong examples across Scotland as well, but it does depend on the exact wind angle. So these are the winds, and you can actually see there's a little, they just ripple a little, there's a little wobble in the winds there as they go over the mountains.
Much clearer if you put on the gusts, actually, and yeah, there's some keen wind gusts there to the west of Scotland and so on. But look at this stripe of high wind gust values. Here's the key, and so everything coloured in is above 30 miles an hour. In the 30s there for the light shades, darker shades there for 40s, and then 50 plus. Just a very small area. Let's zoom in a bit more.
Slither of a gust zone there where 50 mile an hour gusts are possible this afternoon. It's quite a small area.
Yeah.
It's all to do with the geography, just the
highly
mountains,
localised,
and the winds going almost exactly perpendicular to those winds.
What you find is that this slice of wind gusts is just on the other side of the hills, so to the lee of the higher ground over the Pennines. And actually, it's easier to visualise if we do a vertical cross section. Apologies if we're getting a bit too technical now. But it looks cool. So
it does look cool.
What we've done is we've taken, well, I asked Steve, who's chief meteorologist today, to draw me a vertical cross-section through the atmosphere, and he basically did a line across the Pennines, across northern England there, and if we just click on the thing, then you'll see the vertical cross-section. What you're seeing here, let's look at the white blocky stuff at the bottom there. That's essentially the hills from vertical
So that's how
view.
the computer models the mountains, the Pennines. So these are the Pennines here.
So we're looking north through a slice of the atmosphere. Those are the Pennines. That's the top of the Pennines there, and then you can see them going down. So this is to the lee of the Pennines. And these colours are wind speeds, not from west to east, but from down to up or up to down. So it's vertical motion of the atmosphere. And where you've got blues, that's where the air is descending. So you've got downdrafts. Where you've got reds, you've got updrafts. And what essentially happens is the wind comes in from the west, it's pushed up over the mountain, so it's forced to go up. This is what these colours are indicating. It's going up, it's forced to go up. Then it starts to fall back down again, but it develops a little bit of a bounce. So you induce this motion upwards, and then it starts to bounce, not just over the hills, but to the lee of the hills, and that's why you get these lee gusts. Here, just as the hills are starting to go down, you've got the red colours indicating quite fast wind speeds going up. So this updraft here, and then it comes down in this vigorous downdraft here, and that's what the dark blue colours are. So essentially, because of that downdraft, it extends all the way down to the surface, and that's where you've got your strongest gusts. That's where that slice of high wind gusts was.
So basically, you've got Lancashire over here, Yorkshire over here, the wind's coming in from Lancashire, getting disturbed and bouncing up and down. You'd be, well, I don't know, wouldn't want to necessarily be flying through that, because you're going to suddenly get the winds. What is that? The numbers there, 750, that's feet per minute. The winds are going up in the red, and then they're coming down by over 500 feet per minute in just a few miles away. So you're going to get really rapid ascent and descent of the air, and that's lee gusts. And there's an explainer about lee gusts that we'll be on our Twitter feed later today, but it's also on our Learn About Weather channel as well. So if you go on
glider pilots use this, they can go quite far using the updraft bit. Downwind of mountains, they can go quite far by just using that updraft. And
it might get a bit dangerous when it's
that bad. Yeah. Then I think only really experienced pilots. Actually, really experienced pilots, not just glider pilots know that if an updraft takes them up, you don't point down then to correct yourself, because if you're pointing down and you encounter a downdraft, then it's going to send you down, but you're pointing down as well at the same time. So really experienced pilots know that you've got an updraft, and then you might find a downdraft quite quickly when you're trying to push yourself back down again.
So that's lee gustiness, lee waves, and you can see them on the satellite picture. It should be easing this afternoon actually, as the winds generally ease off a little bit, but and actually the zone of those strong gusts, interestingly, depending on the speed of the wind, the zone will move, won't it, from west to east a little bit, and there we go through this afternoon. So by tomorrow morning, that's less than 30, because the winds have eased. They're still kind of in the same direction, but the actual wind speeds have eased that much, so you don't get that bouncing effect.
Yeah, the winds at the moment quite beneficial for the UK's energy supply. Actually, let's have a look at that. And these two graphs here show you essentially how much energy we're getting from different sources. And a few months ago, we were talking about how we weren't using coal for a while because we were getting so much energy from solar. Obviously, that's gone down significantly. Solar is that one there?
Yes, that's the yes.
Colourblind.
Aidan's colourblind, so I have to help him out here. Yeah, so that's the solar one. That has shrunk quite a lot. But this green one, that's wind. That is wind power, and actually that is greater than gas. And so that is the biggest individual supplier of energy across the UK this morning. So this was the 10:15 this morning. Real life dashboard of the UK's energy consumption. It's a great website. This
visualised in a pie chart there, and then on the right here is a bar chart, and you can see renewables are much higher than fossil fuels, but also most of the renewables at the moment are coming from wind. So yeah, some benefits there.
And more to come through the rest of this week, really, because it stays pretty blustery, doesn't it? We'll look at the forecast in a moment, but
it does.
It is going to stay gusty, so it will be a tricky week for umbrellas, as I said, but a good week for wind farms.
Yeah, plenty of showers around.
Yeah, actually, let's have a look at the showers, because if we just zoom out and show, it's a real speckled hen of a day, isn't it, on the radar as we put the radar. You can just see all the spots coming. There was a band of them going through earlier on today, and once they've gone, there's a bit of sunshine, but then just look at this, a real rash of showers to come in through tomorrow.
Cloud put on as well.
So you can really pick them out. So it's sunshine and showers, as I said, classic October fare, really, and quite blustery. Temperatures around about average, nothing too remarkable to show on those.
Yeah, let's get those temperatures on. These are the afternoon temperatures, so 15, 16, 17, perhaps a little bit more in a few spots, so nothing remarkable. Feeling cool in that blustery wind, but
And when the showers come along,
enough
temperatures tend to drop quite a bit when the showers come along. So they're the maxima in the sunshine. So yes, blustery. We'll have a look at the longer range because there is a bit of uncertainty about Thursday and into the weekends. Could get it's going to stay windy, but it could also get quite wet as well. We'll have a look at that in a moment. But any more questions?
Yeah, some interesting questions coming through. Chris Clifford, is it going to be a stormy end to October? And Andrew Baldock says, is there going to be any dry weather over the next week or so? Well, the trends through until the end of October into the beginning of November suggest it will remain unsettled, with only short spells of drier, sort of colder weather interspersed with generally mobile conditions coming in from the west, and that's what we've been seeing over the last week or so. So that's quite an interesting one. The boys will give you more details about the next 4 or 5 days. And an interesting question has come in from Prasanth Messi. How does the MJO influence the Indian monsoon? Well, the MJO is the Madden-Julian Oscillation, and it's a major fluctuation in tropical weather between around a week and a month. So it can enhance the rains across the southwest monsoon, or it can reduce the intensity of the rains depending on what phase it is. And these phases tend to propagate eastward. So that's a very interesting question. MJO, look it up. It's quite an interesting phenomena and something that we do obviously look at quite intensely, particularly the Global Guidance Unit here at the Met Office. So keep your questions coming in. If you're on YouTube today, hello, no technical problems, but I sense there might be I sense there might be 1 or 2 issues on Facebook. So sorry about that, but obviously we will post this show after we've gone live.
Excellent, thank you very much, Clay. I don't think we've got an explainer on the MJO, have we, yet? We need to work on that because that's quite an interesting thing. So hopefully we'll make a little explainer video just about the MJO, and we can put that on YouTube sometime soon. But yeah, it's a fascinating bit of content that we should be making. Speaking of fascinating, let's head over to the Western Pacific, because there is a powerful typhoon, a very powerful typhoon, that has eased off a little bit in the last 24 hours, but the 24 hours before that, it went crazy. It really intensified, rapid intensification, turned into equivalent of a Category 5 storm, Super Typhoon. This is Hagibis, Typhoon Hagibis.
You can see the dartboard eye there.
So this is China here, Taiwan there, Japan there, and it is drifting its way slowly but surely northwestwards. And although it has weakened a little bit in the last 24 hours, it's still a powerful storm, still packing winds gusting 170 miles an hour close to its centre. So that is not to be messed with. And it is drifting its way northwards up towards Japan. It's still got a few days to go. It's going to get there at the weekend. It looks like there's still a bit of uncertainty about the exact track. But it is expected to remain pretty powerful, like to arrive in Japan, still packing winds gusting over 100 miles an hour. So it's going to have an impact. Beautiful satellite picture.
Recent image, that's from 8 a.m. this morning. When it's the middle of the night there, obviously, but incredible imagery coming out of...
And so incredible stats from this. It dropped 67 millibars in 24 hours. Which actually, although that sounds quite a lot, isn't one of the biggest drops we've ever seen. 100 millibars is the record in terms of a tropical system drop in any 24-hour period, dropping 100 millibars in intensification. But what this storm did in terms of its wind strength was truly remarkable. It increased the winds near the core by 100 miles an hour, over 100 miles an hour, 90 knots in 24 hours, and that's close to record breaking. Hurricane Patricia holding the record for that from 2015.
But it's gone down now, but it is heading its way north. This is the official track from the Japanese Meteorological Agency, and if you can't make it out there, we've got the dates there. That's the 11th of October. These are UTC times, so 6 o'clock UTC, 11th of October, and then 12th of October. So into this weekend, the official track takes it into southern parts of Japan, and then close to Tokyo. Obviously a very, very populous...
That's the most likely position on Saturday morning for the storm there, and that's the red line is the outline 50 knot wind, but it's going to have much stronger winds closer to the centre. That's at 6 o'clock in the morning, so it's probably going to be close to midday. If this is correct, it'll be close to midday UK time that it makes landfall in Japan. But there is still quite a bit to play for in terms of its position.
So in terms of its
much further west.
That's the position of the eye. Such a big typhoon, though, that its impacts will be spread quite far and wide across Japan. So even if there are errors in this, I think that many places will be affected by wind, rain, and also the sea surge accompanying the typhoon. And it will take some time, even if it decreases in intensity, it will take some time for that to take effect, because the larger the storm, the longer it takes to decrease in intensity.
Because it'll be quite a big storm surge as well. It'll be tucking up the water and pushing that, so there'll be a big storm surge on those southern portions of Kyushu and Honshu there. So, and there's little, and quite interesting, the way the geography is there. There's little inlets and stuff that are going to see quite a bit of flooding the way the water gets pushed up. So the exact position of Hagibis will be crucial to the storm surge and how much water they get.
Yeah, so very populous places that Hagibis is heading towards. Not good news for anyone really, but of course there's also the Rugby World Cup going on. So let's take a look, because the timing of Hagibis heading towards Japan
could have quite a big impact.
These places could be impacted. So it's just off the screen there. These are the stadiums
for the games on Saturday.
For the games on, well,
Friday and Saturday, isn't it?
Friday, I think, will come up now. Australia v Georgia. So we're going to start to see the winds picking up. Again, like I say, some uncertainty on the track. Wouldn't take the computer model here too literally. But it's at this point that we're going to start to see Hagibis approaching. Friday's game, Australia v Georgia. But really, it's Saturday.
The winds start to pick up and the rain, so you get the outer bands initially coming in. So that's what time's the first? The big game.
These are UK times on the bottom left there, by the way.
New Zealand, Italy.
First one.
England, France, in Tokyo.
Let's pause it there. So that's possibly a bit further west than the official track, but nevertheless you can see the extent of the wind and the rain. So even if there are small errors, even if the forecast changes a little over the next few days, it could well impact some of these matches.
Ireland Samoa, that's an interesting one, because that could really impact the whether Ireland qualify or not, or whether Scotland qualify if that gets called off. So the exact track again will have an impact on that. Also on Saturday, the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
The qualifying for the Grand Prix could be very wet and windy as well. Does tend to clear away by Sunday, which is race day, of course, but it could still be affecting the other games, Namibia against Canada there in the Rugby World Cup. So if you're a Rugby World Cup fan, or just if you're interested in weather, then stay tuned, because this is going to be quite a storm and could have impacts across Japan this weekend. Could be quite a serious storm. It's
much more serious impacts, obviously, than affecting the rugby, but big sporting events this weekend in Japan.
It's 130 knots gust still as it arrives on Saturday, which is gusting over 150 miles an hour. So it's going to have some pretty serious impacts, that storm, as it approaches over the next couple of days. So yeah, make sure you stay tuned to the latest Met Office and Met Office storms, both on
Twitter.
Good Twitter accounts to follow for the latest on that. Claire, any more questions coming in?
Yes, a lot of people want to know the forecast for the next week or so, and into the half term as well, which happens obviously later on in October. The boys will be giving you that in a minute. Kevin, who is Kevin, I hope that's right. Irish name, I couldn't pronounce it, but I think that's what you say. On Facebook, and we are now live on Facebook. I'm sorry for the issues earlier on. You missed Lee Gustiness. That was what we were talking about earlier, and in the showers, but you're probably up to date now. A lot of talk about snow at the end of October. What's your thoughts? Well, currently the weather is looking very mobile, and we see mobile conditions. It tends to be mild as well, because the weather's coming in from the west or the southwest. So currently no indication that it's going to turn a lot colder, but obviously things can change. Jonathan on YouTube, he's going to Bognor Regis, Butlins. I've been there, great place to go for half term. Any possibility of the weather forecast for then? Well, currently it's looking unsettled, so rain or showers and rather blustery, but not particularly cold. Matty B, there's a talk of a blocking high over Greenland and a colder spell for UK and Europe. Is this true? Well, it depends when you're talking about. But over the next week or so, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It looks like the weather will remain quite mobile here, as I said. Callum Kent on YouTube. I've heard there's going to be an insane drop in temperature over Colorado. Well, there has been another real plunge of cold weather across North America. We saw one about 10 days ago, another one currently happening at the moment. And yes, it's associated with snow and some very low temperatures. So yes, insanely cold across some parts of the US at the moment. And then another question which has just come in from John Hallett on Facebook. Why does most of our weather come in from the southwest? Well, most of our weather is driven by the jet stream, which is a ribbon of very strong winds in the upper atmosphere, part of what we call the Rossby waves, which propagates right around the world at the mid-latitudes, and that's determined by how cold the air is to the north and how warm the air is to the south. This time of year, the jet stream is very pronounced, and because of the spin of the earth, it tends to propagate from west to east, and that's why we tend to get a lot of our weather from the Atlantic. And that's what's happening over the next few days, isn't it, chaps?
Here it is.
I've got the jet stream just bang on cue. Thank you very much, Claire. Yes, this is the jet stream. It's going to remain fairly lively and influence our weather for the next few days.
The colours here indicate the strength of the jet stream. So the darker the colours, the faster the winds, blowing at 30,000 feet or however high it is at the moment. And we look for a couple of things for the jet stream. The jet stream develops areas of low pressure and carries them around. So that's one thing we look for. But another thing we look for are these what's called troughs and ridges. So let's just put one on there. That's a trough there, put a T there, and that's a ridge. Very subtle lumps and bumps in the jet stream. More subtle than my handwriting. So watch this trough. This is Tuesday evening. It's to the west of the UK, and we'll run it forward, and you can see that trough then night falls Tuesday night into Wednesday, and that trough, it actually extends, so it gets more pronounced across the UK and crosses the country during the day on Wednesday. Why is that important? Because when you've got one of these troughs over the top of us, it's essentially an area of low pressure above us in the sky at the jet stream level, and so it sucks up the air, creates this sort of vacuum effect high up and lifts the air rises, and you get more showers, and effectively that's what we've got. Lots of showers, lots more showers to come on Wednesday courtesy of that trough. Then a ridge comes along for Thursday. Not a particularly impressive one, but it will help to kill off some showers into Thursday.
So yeah, Thursday's probably the best bet. Certainly across southern and eastern parts, a reasonably dry day. Probably the driest day of the week, Thursday, because of that little ridge.
There it is. There's that ridge coming along for the end of Wednesday and into Thursday. But by this stage, actually, the jet stream is becoming a little bit more bumpy, a bit more amplified. And out to the west, it helps to do the other thing that we often look out for, which is to develop areas of low pressure.
You see the intensification there, the darker pinks there, that's what's helping to develop that particular area of low pressure out in the Atlantic.
Yeah. One thing that we look for especially is for where these colours end and where you've got what we call a left exit. It's very technical, nothing to worry about too much, but basically that low is in a sweet spot for the jet stream to develop it.
Describing it. Yeah, a left exit. So it's just,
you can see it deepening because it's in the bit of the jet stream where the highest speeds start to decrease then. It's on the left exit. And it's that low that's coming in for Friday. But there's also another thing coming down here. You can see some weather fronts. Essentially, it's all going to turn very wet and windy for the end of the week.
So there's some uncertainty about whether those set of weather fronts could spin up into an actual individual area of low pressure, which would make it bring more rain. And it's trying to do it there. Subtle shift in that could really intensify that into quite a big area of low pressure, which could bring quite a lot of rain. All the while, though, coming in from the Atlantic, it's western areas that are going to bear the brunt of the rain through the end of this week. They're going to see some of the heaviest rainfall. Even if it doesn't develop into a full area of low pressure, it'll still be showery, and you can see a lot of isobars on the chart. It's still going to be windy.
Looking at this yesterday, it was a bit deeper there, and therefore we were a bit more concerned about whether we'd see serious or impactful winds across southern parts of Britain. It looks a little less likely now to be that deep. But yeah, lots of rain on it. There's the rain. It's coming in, especially across western hills of England as well as Wales. So a wet and windy end to the week after a showery few days, essentially. And
then again, we're looking out in the Atlantic for developments through the course of the weekend, particularly Saturday night and Sunday. Again, another area of low pressure. Again, the jet stream just charging it, giving it a bit of oomph. and potentially then bringing more wet weather. You can see a conveyor belt almost there of rain down out in the Atlantic, and that could whoosh in, and again, whoosh, technical term, it could spread in some pretty heavy rain. Again, Western Hills, Wales, northwest England, possibly southwest England. Exact position open to uncertainty.
And a damp start to the weekend in the south. You can see that weather
front hasn't cleared
trailing
yet.
there.
Yeah.
And before the jet stream, if we zoom out a little bit.
Now there's a really big trough out there, out in the Atlantic, isn't there?
Yeah, so it's whether that then picks up areas of higher humidity to the south of it and develops them into areas of low pressure that we're watching closely. And the big uncertainty comes sort of later Saturday and into Sunday with that jet stream. Now, on this computer model, it does want to develop an area of low pressure. So let's pause it there. It develops this area of low pressure here, which then brings tight isobars and outbreaks of rain across western parts of England and Wales once again. But other computer models haven't really been developing an area of low pressure on Sunday to the same extent. They're still bringing some rain, they're not bringing the strong winds. So that's...
If we zoom out and show the trough, the trough on the jet stream as well, actually, because that can, it wouldn't take, it's some of the computer models are disrupting the trough and actually cutting it off there. It wouldn't take much for the jet to go like that and actually cut off that trough, and then you don't get as much development. So really subtle shifts in the atmosphere now are going to impact what happens downstream 4 or 5 days from now onto Sunday. But there is the potential there for certainly, well, pretty much guaranteed it's going to be blustery for the next few days, but there's potential there for a couple of bouts of some pretty heavy rain as well, because it has been a very wet start to October after a couple of wet months with August and September. Obviously something we need to keep a very close eye on. We'll be keeping you updated, and we'll be looking further ahead as well. Tomorrow I'll be doing the 10-day trend and looking at trends of the weather into next week, and then it's half term the week after for some. So yeah, we'll maybe have a nod towards that as well. So interesting times, always is at this time of year. Lots going on in the atmosphere. Lots of questions coming in, Claire.
Yeah, it's interesting actually on Facebook. Darren Landals. Why don't our seas freeze when we're in Scotland parallel to Canada where they do? That's all down to the Gulf Stream, a very warm current of water, surface water, which pushes up from the southwest, part of a family of currents which are more three-dimensional called AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. So the top bit, the warmest bit, coincides where we are across the northwestern part of Europe. And in fact, some times of the year, the temperature difference between Canada and the UK and northwest Europe can be up to around 9 degrees difference because of the Gulf Stream. So it's a very interesting body of water, which keeps us very much more milder. Caleb Weather Dude, hello there. That looks like a strong jet stream. Just a comment rather than a question, like that. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's a strong...
We love comments.
Yes, we do. Zach Berry Porter, how often do we get tornadoes reported in the UK? And what's been the strongest tornado ever recorded? Well, we get on average around 30 tornadoes a year. It could be more. It's only when we see them, and it extends down from something called a funnel cloud, which happens across a storm, a cumulonimbus cloud. Very different from what we see across Tornado Alley. They have supercells over there, which means that the winds are a lot more violent, but per square mile or kilometre, the UK comes second actually, because we're a small island and we get around 30 to Holland. So yes, we do get quite a few a year. Most of them don't cause any damage. 2005, I believe, Birmingham Moseley, there was quite a significant and dangerous one which caused some damage not only to buildings but also to cars. So look that up, it's quite an interesting one. I did a doco about that a few years ago for CBBC and interviewed a guy who hid in his cupboard for 2 hours as it pushed over. So yes, there's a lot going on. People are really interested about the forecast for the next few days, and certainly half term is critical. Will we get any October sunshine?
That is the big question. Yes, as I say, we'll have the 10-day trends tomorrow, so we'll be looking further ahead in that. That'll be on Facebook and on YouTube. Thanks for watching. If you've liked it, tell your friends, share with them, give us the thumbs up as well if you're watching on YouTube. But do keep your comments coming in, even if you're not watching this live. Got any more questions, got any other ideas of what you'd like us to discuss and to cover, then do let us know. We do keep an eye on those comments. But yes, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you again next week.
Bye-bye.